Hi guys, Mike with Fights with Friends here, wishing you all a happy 4th of July again. I'm in between vacation destinations. We just got back from Eastern Washington last night. We're going to come home, regroup, repack for that great fireworks show. Tomorrow, 4th of July in Long Beach, Washington, I'll be live streaming from what they call the War Zone. Then the next day, of course, I'll be live streaming another fireworks show, and that's Professional Fighters League 3. And there's a lot of great fights, not just in this tournament, but on this particular card. I'm going to break down the top 6. João Zeferino versus Paul Bradley. João Zeferino goes by the Brazilian Samurai. If you've never heard of him, he's 21-9. He's finished all but 3 of his fights. Guy's got masterful jiu-jitsu. He's got 15 submission wins. One of the first things I looked at was how did he do against other participants that are in this tournament? Well, he's got a KO victory against Jason High. He fought Brian Foster twice, actually, in an 8-man World Series of Fighting tournament, and they split victories. Zeferino submitted Brian Foster the first time in the first round. It was a double elimination tournament. Brian Foster came back later in the night, knocked him out in the second round. So if Zeferino does win against Bradley, it's likely that we get to see a third fight between these two. And that's an exciting trilogy in my mind. If you remember, Brian Foster had an incredible debut in this tournament. Beautiful, spectacular knockout. If you don't remember, look it up. But finishing Paul Bradley's not going to be an easy task. The guy's got 33 fights. He's never been finished by submission. His only KO loss came to a bigger Luke Rockhold in Strikeforce. Zeferino is highly unlikely to knock Paul Bradley out. And like I said, Bradley's never been submitted. This could go to decision. Bradley's got 15 victories by finish himself. He's got 7 subs and 8 knockouts. His 8 losses have mostly came when he stepped up in competition against Rafael Natal, Luke Rockhold, a split decision loss against Yushin Okami, and he lost a decision in his last fight in Bellator against former champion Alexander Shlemenko. So he's fought some pretty stiff competition. Both fighters have. However, I have to give the 32-year-old Zeferino the advantage over 35-year-old Bradley by decision. I just think he's a little more complete MMA fighter, and I really hope that sets up an exciting trilogy match in this with Brian Foster. I think it just adds one more wheel to the cog of this incredible tournament. Maybe you guys have seen the advertisements on NBC, on Facebook, on YouTube, on other venues. I'm glad that they're advertising this. I hope that they're getting the viewers and some competition for the UFC. And I think João Zeferino versus Paul Bradley is going to be a great fight. Hi guys, Michael Fights with Friends. Let's get into the second fight that I'll be reviewing. A total of 6 fights I'll be reviewing for July 5th's Professional Fighters League. If you like what I do here and would like to donate to my children's firework fund before they bankrupt me, go to paypal.me/Fights with Friends to help support this channel and help keep us doing what we're doing here. Second fight I'm going to be reviewing for PFL was John Howard versus Gasan Umalatov. 35-year-old John Howard, you guys know who he is, most likely. He's a journeyman veteran by definition. You probably remember his back-and-forth battle with Uriah Hall. I think it was like 2011, 2012. It was Uriah Hall's first fight in the UFC after The Ultimate Fighter. He's finished 15 of his 25 wins. Guy's always dangerous. Most importantly, he's always entertaining. The guy's never been in a boring fight. Since his entertaining victory over Uriah Hall, he is just 5-4. He's faced fellow tournament participants Abubakar Nurmagomedov, Of course, Khabib's brother, who will also be on this card. They fought in October of 2016. He lost to him by decision. That might be one matchup he tries to avoid. He's most likely, if he's going to get through the tournament, going to have to fight him, though. Gasan Umalatov, he's 17-4. You may not know him as well. He's got 11 stoppages, 7 by sub, and 4 knockouts. He went 2-0 in 2017, both first-round knockouts. Let's hope for his sake he's rejuvenated. He took 16 months off. Before his last 2 victories, he had back-to-back losses. He took 16 months off, said he revamped his game, changed camps, switched things up as a lot of fighters do. Looked a lot better in his last 2 fights, but 2 first-round knockouts. That's not a lot of work. John Howard is going to make him work. We know that. In 38 fights, Howard's been knocked out 4 times. So, last time was by Tim Means in 2015 and Lorenz Larkin in the same year. I don't see Gasan pulling off a knockout. Unless Amatar really tags Howard, I think he's the better overall martial artist. Howard is. I pick Howard by unanimous decision. I do think it's going to be an exciting fight, and I think whoever wins this is going to be in the top 4 probably in that division to win that $1 million. Thank you for tuning in to Fights with Friends, and I will be coming back with a new review very quickly. Hi guys, Mike with Fights with Friends. This is going to be my 3rd breakdown of 6 major fights on the July 5th Professional Fighters League card, day after the 4th of July. It's broadcast on NBC Sports and around the world on Facebook. You can also see a lot of it if you go online, professionalfightersleague.com. 3rd fight, I'm going to be breaking down Shamil Gamzatov versus Eddie Gordon. Shamil Gamzatov, he's a 28-year-old prospect. He's 11-0 with 10 finishes. 5 by sub, 5 by knockout. He's got 7 first-round finishes. They come over mostly unknown opponents, though, at least here in the United States. A lot of them are overseas, Russia, Ukraine, that area. We'll see if Shamil's record looks as good on the canvas as it does on print. If the name Eddie Gordon sounds familiar, he won the middleweight Ultimate Fighter on that season with BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar. He's finished half of his 8 victories in his career, since running his record to 7-0. This KO of Diogo Lima, he's lost 4 of his last 5. His only 1 win since 2014. He's been choked out in his last 2 losses, and Gamzatov has got a solid jiu-jitsu game. I think Eddie Gordon is on the downside of his career. I'm going to pick Shamil to win this one by a first-round submission. Let me know what you think down there in the comments on this fight and all the fights that I review for this. Let me know what else you guys want to talk about, and let's get into the next fight on this card. Hi guys, Mike with Fights with Friends here. Let's get into the 4th fight that I'm breaking down on this incredible Professional Fighters League card on July 5th. Of course, they're calling it the $10 million tournament, 6 divisions, $1 million to each division winner, $200,000 to each runner-up. Day right after the 4th of July. Like I said, I'll be broadcasting from what they call the War Zone tomorrow on the 4th of July. The day after, the fireworks continue as I'm broadcasting Professional Fighters League, and you can follow along on NBC Sports and Facebook. We haven't heard the name Rick Story in a while, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But he's going to be fighting Yuri Villefort. Yuri Villefort, I like to call him the Streak. Currently, he's on a 5-fight win streak. That includes 2 first-round knockouts, 2 second-round guillotine submissions in his last 5 fights. I call him the streak because right before that, he lost 5 fights in a row. That was after starting his career with a 6-fight win streak. So the guy goes 6 wins, 5 losses, 5 wins. Maybe he's back on track. No long layoffs, no injuries. In fact, the turnaround it's largely a mystery. MMA math is such a weird puzzle, and it's so mental. There's no telling what goes on in a guy's head. It's like he gets a win, he's positive, he goes back in there, he's confident. He gets a loss, maybe this guy gets a loss, he loses some confidence, loses 4 more in a row, and then all of a sudden he gets a win and he's back on track. So maybe he's back on track. Out of his 11 wins, he's finished 8 of his opponents, 4 of them by submission, 4 of them by knockout. Rick the Horror Story. If you've been around the UFC for any amount of time, more than 2 or 3 years, you're probably pretty familiar with him. You probably really wonder why he left the UFC too. So after winning, he had 3 victories in a row. One of them over Tariq Saffiedine, one over Gunnar Nelson. This was coming into the Cowboy Cerrone fight, and this is the last time he fought. He'd won 3 fights in a row, and he went in there against Cowboy Cerrone, and the UFC wanted to negotiate a new contract with him before the Cowboy Cerrone fight. Rick Story took a huge chance here, and he said, I want to wait to negotiate my contract until after the Cerrone fight, assuming, let's put my destiny in my own hands, as fighters like to do, thinking that if he wins this Cerrone fight, he's going to have the leverage to negotiate a better contract. Unfortunately for him, it didn't work out that way. Cerrone gets the win by a 2nd-round knockout in August of 2016, and Rick Story hasn't set foot in the octagon since. Now, that's not because the UFC didn't want him or didn't offer him another contract. The 19-fight UFC veteran was offered a multi-fight contract from the UFC before the Cerrone fight and offered to negotiate afterwards. He turned both of them down. He got beat up pretty bad by Cerrone, in his own words, and it really made him think about life after the UFC. That's what he said. He decided to take some time off to chase his childhood dream, and that's to be a firefighter. So he went back to school to be a firefighter, secure his post-fight UFC career. He's only 34 years old. He will enter this $1 million tournament with a good chance to secure financial stability, maybe be able to leave fighting and go straight into full-time firefighting. And he may either way. Or he may end up in the UFC after this for a little while. But at least he's got his backup career out of the way. It was really bothering him. So he took that time off. Now he's coming back. He's still got a few years to fight. He can decide what he wants to do. So I think Story grinds this one out. The guy, he's a grinder. He's very hard to finish. I think he wins it by decision. How far he goes in this tournament, I think, kind of depends on how much he's been training since he stepped in the octagon against Donald Cerrone 2 years ago. I know he's been back in camp for at least the last 6 months. The 18 months before that, I don't know. So how much ring rust does he have? We're going to see in this fight. I think he overmatches his opponent in this one, though, Yuri Villefort, who could win. The guy's on a streak, but I just think Rick Story is going to be too tough for him, and I look forward to seeing what both these guys, whoever comes out of this, does in the rest of this tournament. Let me know what you guys think, who you think is going to win this fight, all the other fights on this card, and maybe the $1 million in each division. Do you think NBC is doing a good job of marketing this? I've seen a lot of advertisements on Facebook and different things. Let me know what you guys have seen. I'm curious what you think about this, and let's jump into the next fight and get another prediction. So what are your guys' plans for this 4th of July? Hopefully you don't blow yourself up, because I want you guys to be fresh and ready to join me on Fights with Friends the next day, Professional Fighters League, because Pavel Kusch is going to be fighting in the co-main event against, it is Nurmagomedov time. It's not Khabib time, but it is Abubakar Nurmagomedov, Khabib's younger brother. If you haven't heard the name Pavel Kusch, don't sleep on this 29-year-old Ukrainian. He's 22-5. He hasn't allowed one of his 22 victims to hear the final bell, masterfully submitting 19 of them. The guy is he's a jiu-jitsu wizard. He's got a very attack, pulling off quick subs. It's just a 25-second first-round heel hook, 59-second first-round armbar, and omoplata just 30 seconds into the contest in one fight. This guy's the real deal. I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't some seeding in this tournament, because I'm a little sad that these guys are fighting each other in the first round, because I think they're two of the best fighters in this weight class, but I can't wait for the fight regardless. And as we know, the top, there's 12 fighters in each division, the top 8 will go to the playoffs, and at that point, anybody has a chance to win the tournament. When you talk about wrestling in 2018, no name shines brighter than Nurmagomedov. Although Abubakar hasn't made the name his brother has, he's 14-1. His only loss came by a technical doctor stoppage, a fight that first round probably would have been stopped by most doctors. He has a higher finish rate than his brother. He's got 7 knockouts so far and 3 submissions in his short career. He already holds a victory over one of the tournament contestants, John Howard. As we talked about earlier, John Howard probably wants to stay away from Nurmagomedov in this tournament for as long as possible. Although most of these fights were fought overseas against names we're not familiar with, 11 finishes in 14 wins, and he's constantly training with Khabib, that Nurmagomedov name. Khabib's got a nephew now that's training. That's a war camp. And just people coming out of that area, we know that's a hotbed for MMA talent right now. Absolutely incredible. For Pavel, 5 of his losses have came by KO. I'm actually going to pick a Nurmagomedov by knockout this time, and I'm going to say Abubakar Nurmagomedov, man, that's a mouthful, gets a first-round knockout over Pavel Kusch in this co-main event, Professional Fighters League, July 5th. But let me know what you guys think. Who wins this fight? And let's work into the main event. Hi guys, whether you're a veteran of Fights with Friends or you're here for the first time, please hit that like button. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button so you can know every time I go live and every time I post a new video. And I hope you like what I do here. And if you would like to support us, please go to paypal.me/fightswithfriends. Unfortunately, my rent's not free, food here is not free, and this does take a lot of time, energy, and material to do this. So I appreciate everyone, all the people that patronage this channel, any support that you can give me. Let's get into the main event of this, though. Jake Shields versus Ray Cooper. We haven't heard that name, Jake Shields, in a little while, but ultimate veteran of the UFC. And we'll get back to him in a minute. Let's get into Ray Cooper. Ray Cooper comes into this main event with a 13-4 record, finishing all 13 of his wins. He's got 8 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. He showed he can handle himself wherever the fight goes. He was riding an 8-fight win streak recently into his match with Young Park. He lost that one by Anaconda. He rebounded with a first-round rear naked choke over Jonathan Pico and a second-round knockout over Charles Felony Bennett in his last 2 fights. Few of you might have heard the name Charles Felony Bennett on here a couple times. I don't know. But Jake Shields, everybody knows who Jake Shields is. If you don't, you're a rookie in the UFC. He's fighting out of Cesar Gracie, of course. He's no longer a young man. He's 39 years old now. He's never really had a young man's game. Not to say he's a boring fighter, but I think he's got a lot left. He's got 42 fights to his credit, though. The guy's been in some battles. You maybe remember some controversy when he fought George St. Pierre for the championship. He kept on wanting to look at George St. Pierre's raps. He was saying there was something funny with the raps. And that kind of became a meme. Tommy Toehold even did a whole video on it and everything. There's a lot more to Jake Shields than the controversy over George St. Pierre's raps. Let me tell you, he's only been stopped 3 times in his career. He's finished the fight 15 times in his 32 wins, 12 by submission. The notable fighters that he's beaten, though, is absolutely insane. Carlos Condit, a prime Carlos Condit. Yushin Okami, Martin Kampman, that was a war. Dan Henderson, Jason Miller, former champion Robbie Lawler, there's Paul Daly, Brian Foster, who of course is also in this tournament, that just had that impressive knockout. Damian Maia, and current UFC welterweight champ Tyron Woodley. Whether Jake Shields would want to get back into the UFC and hope that a win in this tournament would springboard him back another shot against Woodley, I don't know. He's there towards the end of his career, probably in age, but he could definitely maybe take one more shot at Woodley if he wins this tournament. Between these two fighters, obviously Shields has fought the better competition. 12 of his 15 stoppages have come by submission. Ray has lost three of his 4 defeats have come by submission. I see no reason to see this one going any other way. I'm going to choose Jake Shields by second round submission. 5 points on the boards for Jake Shields. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about with points, Professional Fighters League, not only do they put it in brackets of 12 mans per weight division, there's points on how and when you win your fight. So if you can finish the fight in the first round, you get 6 points. Every time you go past the first round, it's kind of like you start losing points. Second round finish would be worth 5. Third round finish would be 4. A decision win would be worth 3. So by that math, a first round knockout is actually equal to 2 decision victories. Very, very interesting. Nobody's done anything quite like this. I really like what Professional Fighters League is doing. I really hope you join us on July 5th for this great tournament and support competition to the UFC. You guys have a great and safe 4th. I said, I'm going to see you very soon. And be safe, because I want to make sure all of you are in the stream for this, because it's going to be incredible. As always, I love you, I respect you, and I'll see your fine asses later.